Big data is good for you. That's the message from Microsoft's CityNext program. As urbanization quickens, Europe's cities are struggling to evolve. Cheaper and more effective transportation, water, energy, healthcare, education and protection from crime are needed. But so too is a more dynamic urban economy. Microsoft is working with Europe's regional and city governments and businesses to transform cities and ensure prosperity. Using a people-first approach, Microsoft is harnessing the potential of all of the city's residents to create healthier, greener and more affluent communities. As part of the European Week of the Regions and Cities, Microsoft hosted discussions on how technology can impact the development of European cities during an extended economic downturn. To get some insight on our digital future, European Business Express met with Joel Cherkis, Microsoft's Worldwide Government Industry General Manager. Joel Cherkis, thanks so much for joining us today. You want to explain a little bit about Microsoft's CityNext program. Give us some background to that.
Well, what we found was that there are a lot of city leaders around the world that are looking for better ways to optimize their infrastructure and how they better support their citizens. So we've responded by working together very closely with the city leaders and our partners within the cities to help drive an economic impact and an ability to help the city better support their citizens, their workers, and ultimately even private industry.
What is it the cities are really chasing at the moment?
Well, the biggest issues tend to be around budget constraints and austerity measures, so they want to do new things with less resources. And what we found is that a lot of the systems that they run within the cities are very siloed. They want to come together with a common platform and a common way to see some of those systems in action.
All right, and we can see some of this work through here. Give us a demonstration.
Yeah, so this actually is an application that was built by one of our partners in Barcelona. This is think of it as a city dashboard, and this is something that city leaders would use to look at the different systems that are operating across the city. And in this particular case, you'll see systems like transportation, water, energy, health, things of that nature. And it's very inclusive from a system perspective, and it's a set of KPIs. And in fact, if I were to select something like transportation, this will give me a drill down on some of the systems that are of importance to the person who is logged into the system. So in this particular case, one of the scenarios for the city is that they're looking to reduce the amount of carbon emissions, and the way they want to do that is they want either smaller engines on vehicles or more people using public transportation. So they'll look at things like the number of two-wheeled vehicles that are actually using motorized ways to move around. These types of systems should be very interactive, and they should be built upon open data, and that's what you're looking at.
Okay, and is your pitch to the cities really, this is an opportunity for you to improve service or to save money?
Well, it's a combination. So the better use of resources are going to ultimately allow money to be used in the right way. What we're finding is that the benefits or the paybacks are happening in a lot of different areas.
Okay, and this payback, is it happening, is it long-term or short-term gain?
Well, there's definitely a short-term gain. There's a fiscal result that's occurring. Okay. The payback on these typically will be within a year's time. There's another application that we find pretty useful. It's around transportation management. And so this is actually a company called INRIX. And this is not a demonstration. It's a live system. And I encourage everybody in the cities to use it. And
this is Brussels.
This is Brussels. In fact, what you're looking at is live traffic data that's actually coming in the city of Brussels. And you'll see things like where road congestion happens to be with details about the road congestion. You'll see accidents. You'll see construction events. The reason this system becomes so interesting to me is not only can I see what's happening from a live perspective, I can actually do some predictive analysis to tell you what the traffic will look like later in the day.
Okay.
So for example, if I were to say this afternoon during the rush hour time period, so let's say around 6:15, this is telling me what the traffic expectations are, and it's using historical data, planned event data, and then weather pattern data, all combined together to be able to give us an idea of what's going to happen. The cool thing is this is happening in 51 countries around the world, and this system works on not just the types of devices we're looking at, but most small screens as well.
In terms of logistics for a company which would move around the city a lot, would this help them optimize their service?
Well, it is. In fact, the type of data that you're seeing, public sector entities like fire, rescue, public safety organizations, but also delivery organizations can subscribe to the data, and the company INRIX actually sells a dashboard that actually helps with logistics planning.
Okay. Which cities are really at the forefront of Europe's digital innovation at the moment?
Well, Barcelona always comes to mind. They're the one that we see the most, and what we found is very innovative thinking coming out of Barcelona from the city leaders. We've been proud to be working with them on some of our initiatives and working with some of their other partners. But we're also seeing things happening in places like Hamburg. We're seeing things in Paris. We're seeing some interesting things coming in Moscow. And then in other parts of the world, there are cities that are coming together. And the really great thing is they're learning from each other and they're comparing best practices.
What do the cities seem to grasp first? What are the policy areas which seem to drive their attention?
Well, the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is around open data and open government.
Okay.
So there's this transparency goal and transparency model that governments are typically looking to support, whether it's due to political needs or just the goal of having transparency with their citizens. What happens is a platform ends up being built, and the platform then becomes the foundation for systems like we're seeing here.
Okay, and in terms of getting growth for a city, nothing happens if there's no tax revenue, if you don't have businesses growing in the city, none of this is going to be viable. So how does this system, how does this help create a new form of economy?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in fact, this new business model is exactly what cities are looking for. And there really are two things. One is the types of systems that we're seeing evolve are very focused around finding better ways to utilize revenue or to find where revenue is not occurring. So simple things like energy and water leaks that occur in a city, that's lost revenue from a taxation perspective. The other issue is you have to deliver those resources again, so it costs you again. So they want to optimize in those areas. The other thing is if you look at situations like this, if you know from a prediction perspective what's happening from a traffic flow or a congestion management, you potentially have new systems or offerings that the city can sell in a public sector, private sector partnership. And they can look at ways that there are new revenue streams that are coming in. This is just a simple example.
How does this data help the individual citizen as well as the corporate city?
Well, there are a couple of things that are happening. I think back to the theme of open government and open data, if public health data, public safety data, health data, transportation data are available in data sets, we've seen this emergence through the concepts of hackathons and app building fests, where applications are being built upon this data. And we're finding that citizens tend to be able to live a safer life when they know the issues that are surrounding them in a specific area. But we also see simple things like their ability to find public transportation when the next bus or the next train is coming very easily. And ultimately, it reduces the carbon emissions when more people are using public transport.
One of the biggest overheads for any government currently is the health bill. And I know Microsoft's involved with some of the telemedicine projects and projects like that, which are really data-driven. Explain to me a little bit about the capacity of these programs.
Yeah, well, there are two pieces typically that you'll find. One is the telemedicine or even the traditional medicine part. So, for example, in the Pomorskie region in Poland, we've been working on a BI system that actually covers 14 different hospitals. There are about 340,000 patients that flow through these hospitals throughout a given year. And what's happening is, as you can look across the different hospitals, you can start to find trends. And in some of those trends, you can ultimately decide that there are better ways to support some of the people or some of the patients so that they don't actually have to come into the hospital, or we can be more proactive. And a lot of it's BI or big data driven. Okay.
And in terms of the accountability as well, when you see these trends, which hospitals performing, perhaps which isn't, which sectors are more problematic, can this data help with the public service accountability as well?
Well, it can if there is some sort of correlation to the data. And what we found is by having more data, there are more people that can look at the data and analyze what's happening within the market or within the business areas. The end result is from correlating data, we can find trends and issues that we may not have been able to in the past because it was too expensive to try to correlate that data.
Okay. When we're looking at economic growth and we're presented with the traditional models of here's how you get entrepreneurs to invest and here's how you get larger businesses to invest in bigger projects as well. How do we see these business models change? Is there a sensitivity to a new model which really has to be established, or are they just tagging this on to traditional forms?
You know, I think it's more tagging on to traditional forms and looking for opportunities to optimize. A lot of it is around the aggregation of the infrastructure. Things like the cloud are really playing a big part of that. And when I say the cloud, I don't necessarily mean just the public cloud, which a lot of people think of in the cloud space. There are private clouds that will handle things like data privacy and security types of issues that have been challenges for us in the past.
The data privacy, you bring the subject up. It's a little difficult for people to trust government now with more data. How does Microsoft help balance this trust issue?
Well, what's important for us is that we understand what the goals of the government are, and most governments around the world have some sort of certification or accreditation process that's out there, and we've taken a very firm stance in ensuring that we can support what the government's goals ultimately are. So we do things like we sign the model clauses with our Office 365 products. We have announcements that have come out recently on our Azure platform in the US from a government cloud perspective. We do accreditation in the UK. And in other places around the world. So our goal is to support the government with the requirements they have and also be a good partner with government when the government is looking at how they should move forward and what issues they should be trying to address.
Okay. Is it too early to see a clear trend for X euros invested equals X return in terms of a growing economy?
You know, I think it's probably, from a pure calculation point, it's a little early in that space. What we do see, or what we are seeing right now, is as you aggregate into a less of a siloed approach, more of a cloud infrastructure model, there are very clear dollars that are there. And a lot of it has to do with consolidation of data center and data center resources. Those are hard numbers that are actually able to be seen when we sit down and do the calculations.
Okay. What are your expectations for how this will phase? What's next for the City Next program? And what do you see really in 10 years' time in terms of how our cities function? Are they going to be much more connected, or are we just going to see a very gradual approach?
You know, I think they're going to get much more connected much faster than they had in the past. The first thing is the platform, so kind of the underlying platform. We're now seeing the specific city functions and the vertical solutions begin to become aggregated. So, for example, public safety and transportation have a lot of ties together because they use the same networks. So what we're seeing now is that the infrastructure, the systems, the messaging between them, and the collaboration between the groups are coming together. The other thing, and probably I think the thing that has the biggest impact, is the ability for cities to work together so that they now have the ability to see what's happening almost in real time, you know, literally from continent to continent, and they can adjust and go online to collaborate with each other as to what's working and what's not.
Do you think that cities are more inclined to collaborate with each other than they are for departments within a city to collaborate, this kind of silo culture? And the psychology of this, what do you see in terms of breaking down the silo culture? What works?
Well, a lot of it has to do with this new generation of city leaders. So a lot of the city leaders that are in place have a collaborative style. They're using political campaigns with things like transparency and participatory government to really encourage the groups to work together. And they're putting key performance indicators. Or what we're beginning to see is cities have chief performance officers in place, and they're driving a lot of what's happening in the city, which in essence will force the cities to work together.
Do you think political campaigns will become more statistically measured then? You know, vote for me and I will increase your transportation budget and reduce your time?
You know, we do see that in some political campaigns. I don't think it'll be more than politics in the past, but we are seeing things. Open government is a big political platform that people are using, but we're also seeing things like vote for me and I'll help reduce the amount of time you wait for a driver's license because, you know, we're going to look at the issues that are important to the people. So those types of issues do arise.
In terms of your marketing, your market research, do you look at these kind of drivers as well? Do you look at what the citizen really wants, or are you looking to what the city councils themselves want, which aren't necessarily the same thing?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. You know, the city leaders always want to support the citizens because they're the tax-paying base and they're the voters. So we want to support the city leaders, the government leaders that you'll typically find out there in what their overall efforts are. But it's a balance in between both of them. What we do find is the voice of the citizen is heard very loud in today's world, especially due to social media, and we tend to support those models as well.
Okay, final question. European Commission, European Parliament, what should their role be in advancing this agenda?
You know, I think the way the model is set up today from a policy standard, it's important to have guidance as to how organizations should move forward. And really, there are four big things that we see happening. There's always the legal aspects or the legislative capacity. There's the policy side, there's the risk side, and then there's the political side. And I see the European Union and the European Commission easily in the first three, definitely playing in the politics side. But helping organizations understand how they should move forward in a way that is secure, reliable, and manageable for their constituents, I think is a good, responsible way to move.
Excellent. Joel Cherkas, thank you so much.
You bet.